Hi and welcome to the video. In the previous videos we've now looked at creating our first server and deploying or creating our domain, which is in this case ad.msptech.co.uk, and then in the previous video we've looked at joining an endpoint and an additional server to that domain. What we've actually done in the meantime is also we've created the second server, which in this case is ADDS002. We've also created another one called file001, and then we've added an additional endpoint, so we have endpoint 1 and endpoint 2. In this video we're going to be on our primary domain controller, ADDS001, the first server that we built, and we're going to be structuring our Active Directory users and computers so that we have a hierarchy that we can later use to apply group policy objects, as well as other security groups within the environment. Jumping straight in, we're going to go to Active Directory users and computers, and to access this we can click our Start button, and there's a couple of ways. We can type in Active Directory, and what we'll find is that we have Active Directory users and computers come up. What we're actually going to do at this point is right click this icon, and we're going to go pin to start and also pin to taskbar. And this just means that we have easy access to this moving forward. Alternatively, when you search for it within the start menu, if you can't find that, you can click start. You can go to Windows Administrative Tools, and you'll find all the administrative tools listed here, including Active Directory users and computers. We're going to go ahead and open this up now though. And this will give us a baseline page where we can see that our domain is listed, in this case ad.msptech.co.uk, and we have a few containers and an organizational unit already in place. At this point, this is the basic view of our network or our domain. What we're actually going to do is enable advanced features, so we're going to go and click on View at the top, and then we're going to go to Advanced Features. And what you'll notice is that on the window here we've had some additional pieces pop up, and this is purely the additional objects that we wouldn't usually see without the advanced features. Also, when we start to select individual devices, there'll be some additional tabs that we can use to manage devices, and this just saves us from not being able to see those in future videos or in referring back to them for additional work. What we're going to do is, on selecting ad.msptech.co.uk or our root domain, we're going to expand that out so we can see on the left hand side we have a mirror image of what we actually have on the main window. And we're going to go ahead and expand this out so we've got the full page. Just realign this. And from here we can see that all of these folder icons, these are actually called containers, and these all have different parts of the system, including in this case user accounts here. And we also have the computers container, which contains our current devices that we've added to the domain. By default, all devices, such as servers and endpoint devices, will be added into this computers container. And then from here we can move these to the relevant organizational units as we need to. In the first instance, we know that we've created the GB London devices for our server names and for the devices that we've deployed already, and we're going to go ahead and create an organizational unit for those devices. At this point, it's worth pointing out that we're looking purely at the computer side of the Active Directory. There is also the users container, and we will effectively replicate what we are doing now for the users also, so that we have both computers and users in separate organizational units, so that moving forward we can apply group policies accordingly to either computer-based policies or user-based policies. But for now, we're just going to worry about the computers. To create the first organizational unit in the hierarchy, we're going to select our top level domain, we're going to right click, and we're going to go down to New, and then we're going to select Organizational Unit. At this point we're going to get a pop-up box for a new object, and we can see here at the top it says Create In, and this is the top level of our domain, in this case ad.msptech.co.uk. We're going to be prompted for a name. In this case we're going to call this MSP Tech, and then we're going to give a dash, and we're going to call this Computers. We can't just use the name Computers because we already have a container called Computers, so we've just added the company name as a prequel, just to give that a separate name. We're just going to ensure that the protect container from accidental deletion is also ticked, as this prevents any mistakes in accidentally deleting the actual organizational unit and all those OUs or devices beneath that within the hierarchy. Once we've typed these details in, we're going to go ahead and click OK. And what we'll see now is we have a organizational unit just here called msptech-computers, and this is within the ad.msptech.co.uk domain. At this point, you've heard me speak about the organizational units, or OUs, and also containers. And for the purpose of this video, all we need to be aware of is that there is a difference between what a container is and what an organizational unit is. We will cover those in more detail later on, but for now we're just focusing on organizational units. Now we've created the MSP Tech Computers organizational unit, we can now start to build the hierarchy for the rest of the devices. We're going to go ahead and select MSP Tech-Computers. We're going to right click on this, and then we're going to go to New, and we're going to create another organizational unit, this time within this OU. Once again, we're going to get a pop-up, and it's going to ask us for the new object details. And we can see in the Create In directory at the top, it's now listing it within the domain top level, and then MSP Tech Computers. For this name, we're going to give this our country code, which is GB, and then we're going to specify that name so we know what it is, just from a visual point. In this case, United Kingdom. Once you've done that, we're going to ensure the protect container from accidental deletion is still ticked, and we're going to go ahead and click OK. What we'll see now on the left hand side is that we have our domain, root domain here, which is ad.msptech.co.uk. We then have MSP Tech Computers, and within that we now have GB for the country code United Kingdom. We're going to continue this methodology all the way down, and the next one we're going to create is the city. So in this case we go right click on the GB United Kingdom OU, we're going to select New, and we're going to do another organizational unit. And we're going to call this one London LND, or LND-London for the city. We're going to click OK to this. And again, as you can see, we're now starting to pad out the organizational units and the hierarchy of our domain. Within LND London, we're going to right click this one, we're going to go to New, we're going to create an additional organizational unit, and this time it's going to be called Servers. And this OU is where we're going to house, or where we're going to drop all of our servers that are located within London and United Kingdom. We're going to go ahead and click OK, and we'll see that's just there. What we're also going to do is create the organizational unit for our endpoints, so our devices, desktops and laptops. So to do that, we're going to select London, LND London, we're going to right click this again, we're going to select New, and then we're going to go ahead and create organizational unit. This time we're going to call this endpoints. We're just going to go ahead and click OK to that. And now what we'll see is when we select LND London, we can see both servers and endpoints are listed within here. We could leave it at this point here, where all endpoint devices, such as computers and laptops, are put into the endpoints OU, and all servers are within the servers OU. However, we are going to go a step further, and within endpoints, we're going to create two additional OUs, organizational units. And the first one will be workstations, like this. And the second one is going to be laptops. The reason for splitting workstations and laptops, and we may even add additional ones later on depending on the type of endpoint device, is that if we need to, we can set group policies and or security objects, dynamic groups, around these different organizational units. The way that the Active Directory users and computers integrate with group policy objects is that you can assign group policy objects to a top level OU, or you can assign it further down the hierarchy into a particular OU. Again, we'll cover group policy objects in an alternative video, but for now we're just creating the structured hierarchy for our Active Directory. At this point, we've now created the GB United Kingdom OU. We've done London as the city within that OU, and then we've done servers, endpoints, workstations and laptops. And as you can see, this builds out a nice hierarchy that we can logically find devices and endpoints. Now that we've built the organizational units, what we're going to do now is move the current devices into the correct location. And there's a couple of ways that we can do this. As we said earlier, if we click on the computers container, just at the top here, we can see that there are 4 devices. And by our naming conventions, we know that GB, LND, WDP, number 1 and number 2, are both endpoint devices, and we know that they are desktops or workstations. And we know that ADDS002 and File001 are our servers. There's 2 ways to be able to move the device from one location to another. The first one is we can select the device, and then we can drag and drop that into the relevant location. So we're going to move our first workstation into the workstations OU, and we're going to drop that in there. And when we do this, we're going to be asked to confirm that the move is correct. We'll also be prompted with a tick box to say that we don't wish to see this warning whilst this snapping is open. We're going to leave that blank, as in case we make any accidental moves later on. It just means that we have an opportunity to prevent any mistakes. But we're going to go ahead and click yes. And what we'll find is the device is now moved from the computer's container, and that's now located in the workstation's OU. The second method, once the Active Directory has grown and we have multiple organizational units and sub-OUs, is to select the device we wish to move. We're going to right-click the device and we're going to select Move. At this point, we will be brought up to a hierarchical view of the Active Directory of the users and computers, and we can scroll to the correct location, expanding each organizational unit. In this case, MSP Tech Computers, GB United Kingdom, LND London. Expanding on endpoints, and we can select workstations. Once you've selected the destination OU, we can go ahead and click OK. Once again, it will disappear from the computer's container, and if we can check on the workstations, we can see that they are now both listed here. This is for device endpoints, and obviously they all belong in the workstations OU as desktops or workstation machines. What we're going to do now is move our file server from the computer's container into the server organizational unit. And to do this, we're just going to select file 001. We're going to drag and drop that into servers. Once again, we're going to be prompted, are we sure you wish to perform this? We can go ahead and click yes to that, as we know it's going to the correct location. And then if we go ahead and click on servers, we can see that that file server is now listed. If we go back to our computer's container, we'll see that the last server listed is our GB LND WPP ADDS 002. In a later video, this server will be promoted to a domain controller. And as you can see, there is already a organizational unit for domain controllers. When we promote this, this will automatically move the device from the location it's currently in to the domain controller's OU. So at this point, we're going to leave this device just here, and we'll cover this in a later video. Obviously, at this point, what we have created is the MSP Tech Computers OU, and we've created GB United Kingdom and the sub-OUs for that location. Based on the previous videos that we've gone through, we know that we're going to be emulating additional sites and locations. So we're going to pause the video here, and then we're just going to create the remaining organizational units to mirror that setup. As we can see now within the Active Directory Users and Computers Management Console, we've now created the GB United Kingdom and sub-OUs. We've also created Manchester as a secondary site location. We've also gone ahead and created US United States and NZ New Zealand. And we've also replicated the existing organizational units from the other sites so that they are all pre-populated, ready for devices to be added. At this point, we can do a refresh of Active Directory, and it will quickly just make sure everything's all listed out as it should be. As we can see here, they are all correctly done. And that concludes creating the organizational structure for the computer devices at this point. As we said earlier, whilst this is the computer organizational units that is now listed, we can also replicate this for the users container, which is where all the current users would be located. And this allows us to segregate the group policies for computers and users moving forward when we start to go down group policy creation and applying those to different OUs. And we're going to do that just now. So as before, we're going to select our top level admsptech.co.uk domain. We're going to right click, we're going to select new, and we're going to go organizational unit. For this organizational unit, as it's going to be relating to users, we're going to do MSP Tech, and then we're going to call this one users. Going to go ahead and make sure that tick box for protect container from accidental deletion is enabled, and we're going to go ahead and click OK. And once again, just as with the other sites, we're going to do the subsites for each users, or the country codes in this case, and we're going to go ahead and create GB, US and New Zealand under the users. And then we're going to go a stage further and create each of the subsites, so London, Manchester, Los Angeles and Belfast for each of the relevant sites. I'm going to pause the video now and we'll come back once those are created. And here we have the organizational units created for our MSP Tech users. And what you'll notice here is under MSP Tech users, we made a mistake and we've put Belfast top level as opposed to within the New Zealand organizational unit. Now, because as we created the organizational units, we ticked the protect this organizational unit from accidental deletion, what you'll find is if you try to drag and drop this, it will actually say not allowed or access denied. We're going to demonstrate that now. So we're going to select BEL-Belfast and we're going to attempt to move this into New Zealand. And it will once again ask for confirmation. We can go ahead and click yes to this, but as soon as we do that, we'll find that the access is denied. If this happens at any point during the process, we need to temporarily disable the protection, move the object, and then re-enable the protection to prevent accidental deletion or moving in future. To do this, we can select the organizational unit that we need to move or delete. In some instances, we can right-click and we can select properties. With the advanced features view turned on, we have multiple tabs across the top here, but the one we're interested in at the moment is security. Object even, try that again. The one we're interested in is object, and then at the bottom here it is the protect object from accidental deletion. We're going to untick that tick box, we're going to apply this and click OK. And now at this point we can go back to our MSP Tech users high level hierarchy, and now we can select Belfast and we can move this into the New Zealand country code. Once again we'll be prompted for do we wish to continue. We can click yes, and at this point we can now see that's listed within the NZ New Zealand OU, and Belfast is within that one. Obviously, to re-enable the protection, we can right-click BEL-Belfast now. We can go back to properties. From here we'll go to object, and then we'll re-tick the box protect object from accidental deletion. We'll apply that and click OK. Once that's re-enabled, what we can do is we can select that OU NZ New Zealand. We can select Belfast on the right hand pane, we can right click Belfast, and we can go ahead and attempt to delete this organizational unit. Now, because we've re-enabled the protection, when we click delete, it'll ask us to confirm the deletion and click yes, but at this point it will see that we do not have sufficient privileges, and the reason being is potentially because it's protected as an object. So we can just click OK to that. It's great to have the protect feature enabled, however it's always worth double checking before you move an object or try to delete, etc, just to make sure it is or is not enabled. At this point though, as you can see, we've now created our MSP Tech-Computers organizational unit, and we've replicated our sites and locations beneath that, and the same for the MSP Tech users. We now have all of our sites and locations included. This starts the organizational unit or the Active Directory users and computers hierarchy for a structured growth of the company. And in the next video, we'll be looking at creating users and groups and populating the MSP Tech users organizational unit.